small world, and I will tell you that I think sometimes people don't think about it as much, but it's very important. I always think what goes around comes around, and to be honest and to help people, and even when you don't think that they can help you. 3 themes that have guided me and helped me in my career that you might take away from tonight and hopefully will resonate with you. The first thing is to be proactive and deliberate about your life. And I think too many people say, oh, I didn't have that opportunity. And I don't think it's about having opportunities. I think it's about making opportunities for yourself, and it's about taking opportunities. The other thing is about following your passions. And I think that it's easy in this world that we live in to get caught up in what our parents want us to do, or what our friends want us to do, or what our spouses want us to do. And it often takes a lot of time to think, well, actually, wait a minute. What really matters is what I care, because I'm me and I'm the one who has to live with myself. And so what do I as a person want to do, and what drives me? And then the third thing that I'll talk about a little bit is, I always say, hey, it's a small world and it's a long life, and you better treat people well. It's very important to be honest, be helpful, and sometimes you see people getting ahead who are questionable ethics or questionable character, and what I find is it always comes back to bite you. And those people who treat others well, who are helpful, who are honest, they're the ones who will win in the long term. So with those sort of 3 themes as the anchors, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up here in Toronto. Actually started my own business when I was 15 years old. I was the youngest of 4 kids, and I guess I still am the youngest of 4 kids. And my older siblings, they all had summer jobs. And I sort of thought, oh, well, I think I should do something like that. I should get a summer job. But I thought, who's going to hire me? I'm 15 years old, and I have no work experience. So again, along the themes of don't wait for the opportunities. I thought, well, okay, I want to go into business, and so I guess I'll start my own business because I want to learn about business, and nobody's going to hire me, so I'll have to start my own business. So I decided that I was a very competitive runner at the time, so I liked to eat healthy food. So I thought, and I love to bake, so I thought, I'm going to start a business selling muffins, healthy muffins, and so. I ended up writing a whole business plan, used to buy bags of flour, this size, and had 15 stores up and down Yonge Street that I sold my muffins to. So that was sort of my first exposure to business, really whetted my appetite that was what I was going to do. Grew up, went to University of Western Ontario, and then after graduation, I went and worked for Procter & Gamble for 4 years, then I worked at McKinsey for 4 years. And then I decided, hey, I want to do something more entrepreneurial. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I should go out to Silicon Valley because that's where all these startups are, and so maybe that would be a good thing for me to do because I'd really love to move outside of Toronto. I'd love to have a different experience and work for a startup. But I knew nobody in Silicon Valley. I knew nobody. I didn't have a work permit. But I thought, well, I know. I'll contact some venture capitalists because this sort of one-to-many approach. I'll contact some VCs. So I did some research and I found out, okay, who are the top VCs in Silicon Valley? And at each firm I went through and I found somebody who I thought could relate to me. So one of the firms was a firm called Benchmark. And there was a partner there named Bob Cagle. And I looked at his background and he'd worked at, I think it was General Mills and BCG. So I thought, maybe he'll relate to me. So I phoned him up and left him a message, and then I sent him an email, and I didn't hear back from him, so I sent him another email, and I phoned him, and after about 5 voicemails, his assistant finally called me up. I'm sure he said to her, would you get this person to stop bothering me? And she said, Bob has said that none of his companies have positions for you, but next time you're in California, he'd be happy to meet with you. So I said, okay, great. So I actually went out to California, I met with him, and he said, you know what? He said, you've got to join eBay. This was in 2000. And he said, eBay's growing really quickly. They always need good people. He said, I have a board meeting the next day with Meg Whitman. I'll mention your name. So I said, great. So the next day, it was sort of towards the end of the day, I get my cell phone rings, and the voice at the other end says, hey, Janet, this is Meg Whitman. So for people who don't know, Meg was the CEO of eBay. She took the company public. She's now the head of Hewlett Packard. Anyways, so she phones me up. She said, hey, Janet, I just got out of this board meeting. Bob says, I have to meet you, and I understand you're leaving in 2 days. Can you come over today, right now, to the office and meet with me? So anyways, long story short, ended up joining eBay. But again, it's an interesting story. And again, getting back to this theme of you don't wait for opportunities to present. You need to figure out what you want to do and go out and make those opportunities happen. Ended up joining eBay. And in those days, eBay was primarily a collectible site. It was coins, stamps. 90% of the things sold on eBay were collectibles. And so they said, well, Janet, like, there's some non-collectibles things being sold on the site, like clothing and home and garden and books. And we're not sure that, like, this is sort of unusual. We're not sure that this aspect of the business is ever going to grow, but maybe you can come and see if you can grow that business. So I joined, and with the help of a great team, we were able to basically triple and quadruple that business in the US year over year for about 3.5 years that I was in California. And of course, now it represents about 80 or 90% of the things that are sold on eBay. And I will be the first to say it wasn't all me. I had a great team, and it was a great adventure in terms of seeing that growth and seeing the growth of the company. But as I said, after about 3.5 years, I wanted to come back to Canada. And everybody in California thought, why would you move back to Canada? Don't you know it snows up there? Like, yes. But again, like the theme about following your passion, like I love Canada. And in fact, living in the Valley made me an even more passionate and loyal Canadian. And I thought, no, you know what? I want to be in Canada. I'm very close to my family. I have great friends here. I actually love the winters. And so I talked to eBay, and I said, hey, like, and my husband is from, we got married when we were down there, but he's from Canada too. And so I talked to eBay, and I said, hey, I want to move back to Canada. And they said, okay, well, that's fine. We'll move you back to Canada, but you know, the only job we have in Canada for you is the head of product, so basically responsible for the ebay.ca website. Well, I thought, I don't want to do product. Why do I want to do product? But I thought, okay, that's sort of my ticket home, and I'll give it a shot, and we'll see what happens. So I moved back to Canada with eBay, and the first thing I did, like the first day or two, I sort of said, okay, let me benchmark how's the ebay.ca site doing versus versus eBay sites in every other country around the world. And I saw, wow, like we're doing a really great job of getting people to come to the ebay.ca site, but our ability to convert those visitors to actually do something is half that of every other country around the world. So I did some things on the site to try to address that, but it didn't really close the gap. And I thought, you know, I think we've got a more fundamental problem here. Canadians spend a ton of time online, very high broadband penetration. They research online, but they're very reluctant to transact online due to a whole bunch of factors, which I thought this is a dynamic that we're not going to be able to change. And given that, is there a different model that would work better in Canada? So I actually laid out 4 or 5 different models that we could do, different businesses we could do, and I finally thought, you know what, online classifieds. That sort of makes sense, right? You research online, you transact offline. Besides the fact, if you're going to have a classifieds business, you have to have people living in the same city, right? Because it's person-to-person transaction. And Canada, despite its huge size and small population, we're actually one of the most urbanized countries in the world in terms of the percentage of the population that lives in an urban center. So I called up some of the people who I knew in California, and I said, hey, like I've been thinking about this, and I really think that what we should be doing is launching a classifieds business in Canada. And here's all the reasons why. And they said, well, that's interesting because we're actually planning on launching a classified site in Europe. We never even thought about Canada. I said, oh, well, yes, like I want to do this in Canada. Like just give me the platform, we'll turn it into English and French, and we'll launch it. And then said, well, actually, Janet, we don't think that's going to work. There's Craigslist is already there, and we don't know about this, and we don't have any money to support you. So again, all around making opportunities for yourself. I said, don't worry about it, don't worry. I don't need much, I can do it on the side. I'll just do it as a side project, and I'll just get a little bit of money. I don't need much money. And just so anyway, so I finally persuaded them that we could launch Kijiji in Canada. And so I took this site that was being launched over in Europe, and initially we launched in Quebec, and then 8 months later, we ended up launching it in English Canada, and I guess the rest is history. Kijiji was extremely successful, and Canada, it launched with 5 other countries in Europe. Canada was far and away the most successful country, and then I was promoted. I was heading the global Kijiji business. And It was a great run, great experience, but again, we had a great team, and I certainly wouldn't want to take all the credit for that. But again, to me, that speaks about, hey, taking the opportunity, not waiting for opportunity, but saying, what do I want to do? And for me, this entrepreneurial passion was very strong in me, and even when I was working within a large company, I wanted to launch something new. So I did that for a while. I was running the global business. I had, by this time, I'd got married, and I had a young son. And I'll never forget once, I was over in Europe, and I'd been to like 4 or 5 countries, and then I flew right over to Asia, and I was all in our Asian countries, and then I flew home, and I had been gone for 2 weeks, and I looked at my son, and I was like, he's grown. He was 2 years old, and I thought, I can't believe it. Like, he's grown. I've missed this time. Kids they grow so much, and they develop so much. And then over a little period, I just decided basically I had to leave and take some time off, just to stay at home full time and so I took 6 months off. And again, talking about living, that was a very hard decision for me to make. And I remember it was actually my husband who at one point suggested it. And I was like, what? Like, I can't leave? What do you mean just quit? Like, this is like my work, that's my life. Like, what do you mean? He was like, well, it's okay. And so again, to me, that's a great, and I'll tell, then I ended up obviously getting back into the work. But, it's different people make different choices in your life. But I remember when I told everybody that I was leaving, there were a lot of people who thought, are you crazy? Or, you must have got fired because nobody would actually leave. And somebody else said, Janet, are you kidding me? Do you know how many people would love to have your job? Revered within eBay, you're managing a global business, they've told you can live anywhere in the world, you've got a team who loves you, and you're throwing that all away. And so I said, yeah, because for me, I just didn't, my heart wasn't in it anymore. I mean, it was great. I loved it while I was there, but it got to the point where my heart wasn't in it anymore. And so I think a lot of times it takes much more courage, a ton more courage to stand up and say, hey, this isn't what I want to do. This isn't what I want to do. I'm going to stop and get off this train and go get on another train. The easier thing to do is always to stay on the train that you're on, but that may not be going in the right direction that you want to go. So anyway, so I took time off, had 6 months off with my son. It was great. Then he went off to kindergarten, and I thought, okay, I want to get back in workforce. I ended up running my own consulting business for 4 years. Great. Then I joined a small startup company where I was the CEO for 2 years. Great experience. We raised some venture capital money, grew the business, and then I was approached by the partners at Real Ventures. Real Ventures has been around since 2007. It's the largest and most active early-stage venture capital firm. And they said, hey, we're looking to hire a general partner in Toronto. We're looking for somebody with your profile. Would you consider it? And initially, my reaction was, oh, I don't know. I've never considered VC. But for me, personally, I decided, you know what, there were 2 things that I really enjoyed doing, and this was, again, it was a lot of sort of what really drives me. And I thought, I actually, as much as I've managed people and had some success in that, for me personally, I don't really love managing people, right? And again, listening to your own self. And I mean, I remember when I was at eBay, they talked to me, hey, Janet, you can go on and you can manage these big organizations. But again, for me, I was like, well, I more like to work with people in a team. And I'm not saying this, like everybody has their own likes and dislikes, but for me, I more preferred being in a team and more being an advisor, consultant, mentor. And I also realized I love working with entrepreneurs. I much prefer working with entrepreneurs than working with big companies. And I thought, hey, going into VC, that combines the best of both worlds for that, in that I get to work with entrepreneurs all day. And I get to help all sorts of different entrepreneurs. I see all sorts of different businesses. And I really view my role as being lucky enough to work with these entrepreneurs and do whatever I can to help them be successful. Hitting on the last point that I mentioned about being nice, so basically being nice to people, right? Treating people well. And I think that's something that I've always tried to do, but I see it in this industry so clearly that I've heard a lot of times people will talk about an entrepreneur And sometimes, if you're talking about entrepreneurs that have failed, there's basically, I guess, sort of, so basically, if there's entrepreneurs where they'll say, if they're repeat entrepreneurs, sometimes you'll hear, you know what, their last business was a failure. But they're a good person, they were, honest, they worked hard, but it just didn't work out because of X, Y, and Z. And I will tell you, in that person, any venture capitalist or any person would be happy to sit down with them and talk to them about their business and say, good for you, I'm sure you've learned a lot, what are you doing next? And let me hear about it, and maybe I'll invest in your next business. But if we hear, oh, you know what, that guy's last business, it was really successful and he sold it for a lot of money, but he was dishonest, he treated his employees badly, and he was a real jerk to work with. People say, I don't want to have anything to do with him, right? It's a very small world, and I will tell you that I think sometimes people don't think about it as much, but it's very important. I always think what goes around comes around, and to be honest and to help people, and even when you don't think that they can help you, it always comes around. And I think has been, I know throughout my career, I have been helped by so many people in so many ways, and I sort of believe, therefore, I should pay it forward as well.